Executive producer, creator, writer, and showrunner, NYSWANER. And here we have Jonathan Bailey as Tim. All right, well, congratulations on Fellow Travelers. You saw the reaction when I said how many have seen it, and you know, fandom out here for this show. They're very excited. Let me ask you, Ron, in 1 second though, I do want to show a clip, but I want to find out why you decided now was the time to adapt this book and get this on the screen, because it's very relevant. Also, we were talking about the relevance of Cain Mutiny. This one is especially important, I think, at this time. So let's take a look at Fellow Travelers right here. That is a heartbreaking scene that we just showed there, Ron. First of all, I have to say congratulations, Jonathan. You won the Critics' Choice Award for Supporting Actor. Congratulations, Matt. You were nominated for the SAG Award and the Golden Globe for this so far. And so was the movie, but the limited series, and it won the Glad Media Award also. It's well-deserved. Ron, why now? Why did you want to adapt this, bring this to a much larger audience than maybe even the book reached?
Sure, you know, Pete, I read the book actually 11 years ago and fell in love with Hawk and Tim, and you can see why, and you can see why. But of course, as we got close to making it, you know, the relevance of what was happening in our country, you know, in the 1950s is it's very apparent. You know, there is a potential demagogue who might be in charge of our country in a few months. And if you want to know something about that demagogue, his mentor, Roy Cohn, is a major character in Fellow Travelers. And the destruction of lives, of thousands of lives, under the power that McCarthy and Cohn had. McCarthy wasn't even the president. You know, that's a demonstration of what might happen if we don't protect our fragile democracy. And even though Fellow Travelers is first and foremost a love story, it's a powerful, sexy, brilliantly performed love story. And I believe love always triumphs. You know, that's the first thing that we have to come on to. But sometimes we need more than love to triumph. We need to take action. And actually, there's a little plot in our show where we get to take McCarthy and Cohn down. And that's, it's a little simpler, I think, in our show than it might be happening now. But the show is very relevant.
Yeah, you know, the Cannes Film Festival just announced their schedule, and there is the movie The Apprentice, which is about the young Donald Trump and his relationship with Cohn. So this is the year of Cohn in a weird way on big screen and small screen. Interesting. Let me ask you, Matt, you are also an executive producer on this, so you have a say in... Applause for the producer?
You don't have to applaud.
You have a say in it as well, not just as an actor, but... And why did you want to do this, and why did you want to be so involved in bringing it to the screen?
Well, thank you everybody for being here. First of all, I read the book. Ron brought me the book at the beginning of the pandemic, really, and I read it, and I was so fascinated by the world of the piece. I fell in love with the characters and the story, and I knew Ron was the right person to tell the story. And you know, I just felt like I was a little bit pessimistic as to whether or not it would actually get made, but I was like, I want to put my voice behind this in whatever way I can. And we were just so fortunate. It was one of those projects where you just felt like voices wanted to come through. Because we were met with these roadblocks along the way in development, and somehow something would shift and it'd be a green light again. And it was just one of those pieces that you knew was bigger than any one of its parts. So I just wanted to lend my voice and and find the right people to work with in all the departments and use whatever relationships I had to just try and get it made.
And this is a very complex, complicated man you're playing, Hawkins. It goes through, this spans the 50s and the McCarthy hearings and politics and all of that, through the 60s, Vietnam, the 70s, and up to the AIDS in the 80s, and it's a lot to throw in here. And he's not always sympathetic, as we saw from that clip. You're breaking this man's heart here, and you know, that's, number one, it's difficult to play and still keep us with you. And so how do you approach that with a character?
Well, if you look into his backstory, there's so much intimacy equals the most horrific thing he could ever imagine for this character, given the circumstances of his life leading up to it. But I think he's a renegade and a rogue and an iconoclast. He's someone who's really invented his own code of ethics to survive. And unfortunately, that can be at the cost of love at times. And he has to deal with the pain of not being able to share his closest, like a full 360-degree love with the people he cares about the most. And that's both with Tim and with Lucy, I feel like. You can't really have a complete love.
And Jonathan, in playing him, this is, wow, I was really impressed with this. You're so good. Of course, you're well known on the British stage and, you know, Bridgerton and upcoming Wicked, where you see him in Wicked. These are completely different roles that we've seen you do here.
Yeah, I think that's also why it was an undeniable dive in, because after, you know, playing a part in Bridgerton and playing a love story that we have seen in, you know, this story between Tim and Hawke hasn't been given this 8 hours of prestige television slot, and it felt particularly punk after Anthony Bridgerton to come and play Tim, and I think that's something that maybe will stay with me through my career, I hope. But just watching it now, even from this weird angle.
Oh, we get a chiropractic appointment.
Is a reminder of just, like, I feel it in my stomach. There's a real emotion that it's not left me. I thought it would. You know, we celebrated this and talked about it a lot at the end of last year. And to come back now to see everyone is just so, it's just still present. And in the last 6 months, what we've had time to do is to get on with our lives a little bit and to try and say goodbye to these amazing characters that Ron has written. But there's so many people who have come up to me in very, you know, in all places all over the world who have seen Fellow Travelers, and they cry. And it's just amazing to be here again to celebrate it, and to know that it will always be the pinnacle of and I know what pride means now, to be able to tell the story.
You're always hoping that your work makes someone feel seen, and I think with this job, more than anything else I've ever done, largely due to Ron's beautiful writing, I've had people of all ages, all walks of life, who see themselves in the character or knew somebody who was like that. And it's not one of those things where they just stop by really quickly and say, hey, I like that. They really want to engage and have tears, full-blown dialogues. It's been unlike anything I've experienced before.
It's vital. And it's, you know, you can tell just the way that Ron speaks what an amazing opportunity to spend a few months in his head, but also with these people. It's so galvanizing and nurturing, and the confidence that you feel having played these parts. And also Tim, you know, they're so extremely different, and their coping mechanisms are completely opposite. And Tim is someone who sees the system and questions everything about it, and is led through emotion, and he's a romantic at heart. And obviously Hawkins is someone who sees that system and plays within it, and that's why they're so drawn to each other. It's a perfect love story. And for me, you know, an opportunity to educate myself, or to be educated in American politics, but also the queer experience over those decades was just, undeniable. And of course, you know, to know that other people who have seen it have, there are loads of people in the world who are living under this sort of oppression.
Yeah, and Ron, I should have mentioned, Ron was nominated for an Academy Award and brought one to Tom Hanks for the movie Philadelphia. And many other things in your DNA or your whole career in doing movies that have something to say and can make a difference. I'm curious about the casting here. How important was it to cast two actors who are both out as gay? rather than this is something you talk about in the business now, well, if you're not gay, you can't play a gay or something. I don't necessarily believe that. I think actors should be able to play anything. But here, you felt it was important, and I think both of you did too. So can you talk to that?
Sure. I'd like to just point out, because I'm very proud of it, we actually have 5 gay homosexual characters in Fellow Travelers, and they're played by 5 out LGBTQ actors. And we have 4 executive producers who are all LGBTQ, 2 of our directors are LGBTQ. So, and our characters are not sort of, the gay neighbor, or it's not like we think that character might be gay. They are as in-your-face homosexual as you can possibly be, and I mean in-your-face literally, in their faces, I should say. So the boldness of the show, I think, has to do with my sort of pent-up frustration of many years of just sort of like saying, I'm not hiding anything anymore. This is who I am, and take it or leave it, folks. So in terms of casting, I don't think it's a requirement, but it was definitely a preference. And you can't really ask when you audition people, et cetera. But Robbie Rogers, our producer, would look people up on their Instagram accounts, and he would say, like, oh, they follow me, they're gay. But I just want to say, Matt came on very early, and we had about these two remarkable. Let's see, it happens. We cry when we're together. I cry when I'm with these guys because I miss them so much. But we had a chance to have a chemistry read where these guys were on 2 different continents. They were thousands of miles apart, and they were doing the scene on the park bench, and they were on Zoom. And what happened between them was it like leaped off the computer screens and Zoom calls, and and the result is up there on the screen.
Also, I wanted to talk about the sex scenes, right? Yeah. Okay. So, because I watched this and I said, every one of them has a purpose. There is no exploitation in this show at all. But they're graphic, but there's a reason. And you see the characters changing in different ways. They're so key to this. Do you want to talk about that and how important that was in these scenes?
Well, it speaks to what you're saying, but I just feel like the characters are never the same after the scenes as they were before, which to me is always a sign that it's integral to the story that the scene happened. And I feel like the way they connected was so reflective of their societal conditioning for each of them. And the way they connected, even though at times it was intense in certain regards, it was therapeutic for both of them. And it always brought them closer together. So to me, even though, obviously it's not always the most comfortable thing, it was always an extension of their relationship and the acting scene that preceded it.
And there's a real sanctity, there's a real act of generosity between them in the power play. But also, as you were saying, they exist in a world where they can't communicate freely. Everything is robbed of them. So actually their communication comes down to absolute chemical micro shifts and looking for the green light all the time physically, and that's just an amazing thing to be able to play, because these characters can't otherwise, express themselves, and so when they do come together, they are fighting for love and they are fighting for that connection. And Tim experiences something that he's never felt, and Hawkins gives him that, and that's something that they then, over the time. I love that the sex in this has a number on the call sheet, really, 69.
It has its own art.
It does, because you see the first sex scene where they end up, it's great. And obviously you'd want a scene partner like Matt, because he never put a foot wrong.
Any comments?
Same, Johnny, same.
All right, fellow travelers, don't miss it if you haven't seen it. So many of them have. But thank you guys for coming up here. And now, more Paramount Plus with Frasier.